Live. Welcome everybody here to the Lakers Lounge. I'm Anthony Irwin, joined as always on this fine Thursday afternoon by Aaron Larsoul, rocking the 49ers hat to, I think, take away some of the pain that his Golden State Warriors have provided him over
The
the
team,
last
you mean the team of my youth?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I mean. I know I'm not implying that you own the Golden State Warriors. They They make you it's so funny. I've been meaning to bring this up to you
Okay.
because you analyze the Warriors
hmm
in almost exactly the same way and tone that I analyze the Lakers.
So this
So
is
like
how this is how I this is how so I always say on the show, well, basketball is weird. I mean, I am a basketball fan, but now like currently, I don't know. It's like weird being a basketball fan. So, but this is how, and so in whatever role that makes me, I always say like I never tell fans how to fan, right?
Mhm.
However, people fan is how you should fan, as long as you're
Yeah,
not, boo, whatever. Don't which the Warriors got booed, basically booed off the floor last
they
night
deserved it.
absolutely. So
Yeah.
I never tell fans how to I never tell fans how to fan, but the way in which what you're referring to is what you see me say on Twitter, I would imagine, about the Warriors and that Steve Kerr should have been fired 7 years ago, which I've been saying now, not 7 years for so long, but I've been saying he should be fired 7 years ago. And it's on Twitter. I continuously say this, and I've said it last year, and I said it the year before. Anyway, so that is just me as a sports fan in general. That is how I fan.
Mhm.
Um, I just and it's not to say like you'll see things, you and I text, and I have group chats with some people in the organization, and you will see me, you'll that side will come out of me in those things
Mhm.
about the Lakers. I just publicly can't do that. I
Yeah.
can't go on. I can't go on. I can't go on a drunken
You're not
Twitter
firing
rant about the
you're not
about
firing Darvin Ham on Twitter? You don't think that's a good move?
right, right. That's no, no, no,
No,
no,
I
no
no,
way.
I just think like this
Like I think the
to
49ers, if
me.
you ask me what's going to happen, and I'm wearing the 49ers hat because it is wild card weekend coming up, and the 49ers do not have to participate in it.
Mhm. Neither do
But I
my
mean, you see
Vikings. It's great.
yeah, right, for different reasons. But you you are like you'll see me and people that follow me, how I just used to rip Jimmy Garoppolo all the
Yeah.
time because he was terrible. And I'm still not in on Brock Purdy. So that is just how that's just how I fan. But I have enough restraint to
Yeah,
when it comes to the Lakers,
understand
I
what
have
the
to have
line
restraint.
is.
Yeah.
Mhm. It's just something that I had noticed, and I think it's what makes this show and our friendship work is that like it's that like when I see you rip the Warriors to Kingdom Come, I look at it and I'm like, see, he gets it. He understands the frustrations that I have with the
Yeah,
Lakers,
I mean
and he
that
understands
is
the
how I
tone
fan.
and the way that I analyze these
I
things.
think
Yeah.
49ers were probably were definitely the best team in the NFC. Probably for most of the year were the best team in the NFL by a wide margin. Baltimore caught them and beat their ass. So if you ask me what's going to happen with the rest of the NFL playoffs, the Chiefs are going to beat the Niners because I'm afraid of Patrick Mahomes and something will just go wrong. I assume
Mhm.
something's going to go wrong. I've been a Cal fan my entire life and have never gotten to go to a Rose Bowl. I mean, this is just how I fan. Being a
Yeah.
fan is a generally miserable experience.
It really is. Like, you really think about it, mathematically speaking, fandom is stupid. Like
Yeah, I mean,
there are
it's
some
also a
organizations
wonderful
that give you
thing.
a better chance. Like being a Laker fan, we have a better
Absolutely,
chance in general than
you've had as good
than than like
historically. You've
most
had a
fan
better chance
bases
than
out there,
anyone.
whatever. But like generally speaking, you have a 1 in 30 chance at winning a championship on any given year. If I told you you have a 1 in 30 chance at anything, you'd be like, why is that something I would hope for?
I mean, fair, but I have also seen you at a roulette table, so like you're
All right. So today's show, as you can see there on the right side, if you are watching live on YouTube, I made this a YouTube exclusive, didn't put this up on Twitter. Please subscribe on YouTube. get those numbers up. Let's keep those numbers climbing. The latest trade rumors that we are rapidly approaching. We're kind of already in trade season, but once January 15th hits, I think it really takes another. It really kicks into another gear for the few weeks between then and the February 5th, I believe, trade deadline.
I think it's February 8th.
Okay, February 8th trade deadline. The
Well,
Lakers
you
have
know what?
won
I
2
have
straight.
a thing. I have a thing. I have a thing.
Well,
I have a thing.
let me finish
Oh yeah,
going
yeah.
through. Let me finish going through the show. So we have Darvin Ham and the Lakers have won 2 straight. So we're going to talk about how close that came to him being let go, if that was ever a possibility, and whether all of this stuff is now behind him. If there is a chance at any of this ever being behind him. And then, yeah, I want to carve out a little bit of time at some point in this thing to laugh at the Golden State Warriors and marvel at Bob Myers' ability to step away at like the perfect time. But no, you said you have a thing. Let's
Oh
go
yeah,
ahead.
so I have
What's your
a
thing?
trade deadline thing.
Okay.
When I mentioned the date, and somebody I was talking to, Bill Ryder, does a fine work for CBS and is a good friend of mine going back a ways. And we were talking trade deadline, and he had a suggestion, which
Mhm.
is that they should move the trade deadline up a week, having nothing to do with basketball, not for basketball reasons, for NFL reasons. Because the week that, like the Thursday of I think it's a Thursday. The Thursday of the trade deadline is like Super Bowl media week.
Yeah.
So people that cover the league and cover other sports, everybody is focused on the Super Bowl and what's happening at the Super Bowl, and everything you see on all the shows is quotes from media days and
Mhm.
everybody talking about the Super Bowl. The week before that is after the conference championship games and is completely dead, right? There's no football
Yeah.
anything happening. And so as a social media product and on Twitter, Sweet Willie writer made the point that he thought the NBA could take over that week because, especially trade deadline and free agency
Yeah.
are such animals on Twitter and social media. So I thought it was an interesting thought.
Yeah, you can't move it back because that gets you to the All-Star weekend, right? That gets complicated for a variety of reasons. I could see them moving it up, but the problem with moving it up, I mean, the NBA, we've already seen the NBA just run scared every time the NFL like looks at them. They're like, "Oh, sorry, you want
The
Christmas?
NFL
You
tries
want
to punk
Christmas?"
them too. The NFL's
Yeah,
like, nah, we coming for Christmas too.
yeah, yeah. Like the NFL like looks at Christmas and he was like, you got it. I'm sorry, I'll get out of the way. So I could kind of see the NBA doing this because of their approach to anything NFL. Um,
It also moves it closer to the actual midpoint of the season,
the
right?
only
Because
thing that I like, it's tough. I mean, it would be nice to have these trades happen earlier in the year, knowing the procrastinators that sports executives are. So it'd be
deadlines
nice to
create
get this done
action.
a little bit longer. You have more time on the other side of the deadline to get everybody kind of involved and ingratiated into the system or whatever. But the downside of it is that you have like smaller sample sizes and smaller data samples to make these
Yeah, but I mean,
decisions
you're
and
doing
stuff.
it. What is it changing? 3 or 4 games difference, right? You're just moving it up
Yeah,
a
yeah,
week.
yeah. I'd be in favor of it. I wouldn't. It'd be one of the few things that I wouldn't really complain about. All right. So the deadline, though, as it's approaching, I wrote back, around December 15th when the first kind of wave of players became available. I wrote about the pricing back then. And the thing that I acknowledged in those trade offers and in my reporting on that is that back then prices were out of whack because you would have to pay a premium for trading as early as that would have been, right? And I do think that the Knicks paid a premium for trading for OG Anunoby as early in the season as they did. I think had they waited a little bit longer, now you risk another team stepping in or whatever, and maybe the price stays at that range because more teams would have been in interest or whatever. But giving up an RJ Barrett, who's a lottery pick and is a good NBA player, and giving up Emmanuel Quickly, who is also a good NBA player, Yeah, you didn't move any picks or whatever, but that's like
No
a
first round
lot of
picks, yeah.
rotation minutes that first round picks. Like that's a lot of rotation minutes that OG now has to step in and make up.
Well, that's fine because it's Tibbs, so Tibbs will just play him 48
Yeah, no,
minutes a
like
game.
yeah.
Tibbs runs a rotation of like 5. Quickly wasn't playing that much there to
Yeah.
begin with.
And that's I think that's more of a statement about Tibbs and
Oh, I
his
agree.
shortcomings as a coach. But
Agreed.
so for the Lakers, though, I've been going through, Jake Fisher has written a couple things for Yahoo detailing the latest on DeJounte Murray specifically. I saw Brian Windhorst had something in a roundtable about the Lakers' kind of general approach to the deadline and the way that they're handling this. Jovan Buha has been really on top of these things too.
Yeah,
I've
by the way,
added my own.
Windhorst, just a point of reference. Windhorst is in town and has been coming to the games, the Laker games, the last couple days.
Um, I have you've been sprinkling in the context and whatever I can offer as well. And the sense that I get right now, again, these things change or whatever, but I legitimately don't think the Lakers. I'd be kind of surprised if they traded their first rounder, the 2029 pick that they can move this year. I don't think they want to. Um, I think it is being sold at the highest levels of the organization as, look, if we don't move it, that means we can include it in a big trade for a big star in this upcoming summer, right? On draft night, I think they would have the ability to move upwards of like 3 first round picks on draft night, because you would have the decision
Yeah,
from New Orleans on which pick that they are going to be using. The Lakers have their own pick, and you'd have some more clarity on those fronts, and then obviously the 2029 first rounder that they wouldn't move this summer. The thinking
or 30, by the
is,
way.
yeah, we're 30. The thinking is
Well, also
essentially
no,
that,
there is another one. Yeah, you could that would get 2 picks. That you 3 picks rather. You would get 2, and the
yeah,
reason for that is because then either 24 or 25 becomes available, and 29, and then on draft day of 24,
31.
31 becomes available.
Mm-hmm. So essentially, the way it has been painted to me is that the Lakers like the idea of holding on to this first rounder. Now, look, if they get insane value, right, and the right guy becomes available, or the Lakers desperately need to make a move to get back into the playoff picture, something like that, then that circumstances changes things. But from what I know right now, or what I've been told right now, the Lakers like the idea of holding on to that 2029 or 2030 pick, and being able to make a big swing for a superstar when Jared Vanderbilt's money can be included. I think Rui's money would still be on the books if he's still on the roster. On draft night. Obviously, Austin Reaves' contract would be, able to be moved.
D'Lo.
D'Angelo Russell has what, like a player option as well. So
He does have a player option, but
so if
he would be able
if
to be moved too.
so if he is by some miracle also on the Lakers roster, you have enough money and enough picks that on draft night the Lakers would be able to make a big swing for a bona fide superstar. And I think from where I'm sitting right now, I think they like the roster that was put together over the offseason, and they want to be able to do that on draft night if it comes to that. Zach LaVine is not a bona fide superstar. DeJounte Murray is not a bona fide superstar. So the opportunity cost in acquiring somebody like those two guys that I mentioned is that you would not be able to make as big a swing in this upcoming offseason. And that's something that they're really focused on here, moving forward.
There's a lot here, and I think be careful, but I think
Yeah.
you're mostly correct. And the reason for that, I mean, there's a lot to consider. Um, like if that is going to be the case, and if you are holding on for a bigger fish than some of the names you just mentioned, like those guys aren't really becoming available much anymore. So who is that guy? That's part of the question about holding on. Um, So that's part of it. The other part of it though is who's available now, and are those guys, any of those guys, whoever you mentioned, and whoever else becomes available between now and the deadline, are those guys worth it? Right? Like take away like whatever the Lakers would have to give up. Are those guys worth it? You're gonna have to trade something that you like. So are those guys worth it? And is the season worth it? I know you say like you never waste LeBron, right? You never waste a season of LeBron, especially at this age. AD is in his prime, but the latter end of it, I would guess, and is having an incredible season. So you don't the Lakers don't really like punt seasons, but you kind of also have to have a sense of reality, right? Like, so the next handful of games here, was it 12 games left or 13 games left? I think it is before the deadline, which is in 28 days, 27 days, something like that. You really have to evaluate, because there is a place in which the season is beyond saving, right? Which is the calculation that Rob made 2 seasons ago with Russ's first season. Didn't really do anything at the deadline because there was nobody there that was going to save the season. So that's a sliding scale of, is this a season that can be saved and worth saving? And is player X on team Y good enough to do like materially change anything? And if not, you hold on. And if so, or if the price is just too good to pass up, then maybe you make a swing. But I think that I agree with you that as of right now, and as you said, these things change very rapidly. Everything changes in the NBA every day. But as we are talking now at whatever time this is on Thursday afternoon, I think it is less likely than what the consensus is out in the world that the Lakers will make a trade. I'm not saying it's less likely. It's less likely than likely.
Trade or a trade?
I mean,
I feel like a trade will probably happen.
Like, okay, sure. But like something, like all of the stuff that is in the rumor mills now and some big name, I think that is less likely to happen than people think.
What kind of needs do you think the Lakers roster has, right? Not talking about like specific names, but like archetype of player. What type of need do you think the Lakers really have?
Offense, just somebody that gets buckets. Somebody that can put some force on the rim, can get downhill. But the Lakers offense is just bad. The Lakers are bad offensively. And so the need is, it's not like, I don't like shooting. You always want shooting, right? You can always use more shooting, and the Lakers are not a good shooting team and haven't been a good shooting team for 150 years. But somebody that gets buckets. You can always, another Christian Wood's been playing better recently. I mean, the Lakers could use a backup big. I think there's this thing where you want to like combine 2 Lakers players, right? There's like one offensively and one defensively.
Yeah.
If you could you combine Torian and Cam.
If you could combine Jared Vanderbilt and Rui Hachimura, you'd have one hell of a player.
Right. And I do Cam and Torian, right? Like, that would work too. So I think the primary need though is just somebody that gets buckets.
If you combine Cam and Torian, you would get Darvin Ham would use that player like Tom Thibodeau uses OG Anunoby currently.
just be setting new NBA records. You know what my favorite record?
NBA, Wilton once. Oh, you're gonna say it.
Yeah, played 48.5 minutes a game. He played every minute of every game, and they went to overtime a handful of times.
Camtorian Prince-ish would average 40.
Camtorian Prince. This is perfection. Yeah, he's just
Darvin would play that guy 48 and a half minutes a game.
Yeah. So and in back-to-backs, you're just get a Kraken.
Oh yeah.
We played 4 overtimes last night. No, it doesn't matter. I need the full 48 from you, brother.
So the two names, and I see a lot of people here asking about it.
Yes.
So I'll just go through the comments here. So Josh Wilson asks, Anthony, I know how against the idea of LaVine you are. Do you see any positives to what he brings on offense? I believe he would take a lot off of Braun's plate, let alone if you're able to get him without Reaves. They aren't trading Reaves for Zach LaVine. I'm going to go ahead and say that definitively now. That is not a move that they would make.
So
Um, and
I do
then,
want to say,
people are asking about
I
DeJounte
do want to say
and
one
stuff
thing
like that.
about LaVine, and this is not about trade stuff, but because the Bulls have been terrible since he's been there, and he's never won anything anywhere, all that kind of stuff, and because he's, the contract is what it is, and because the Bulls are very obviously open to trading him, I think that he is getting underrated. He is a damn good offensive player. I mean, he'll get you 25 a night on like basically 50, 40, 90. So there are a lot of not great parts to LaVine's game, and there's some not great parts to his offensive game. He's an awful defender, and there's some not great parts to his offensive game too. But I think the
Wish he was a
conversation
better
has swung.
facilitator.
I think the conversation has swung a little too negative on just him as a player. I'm not as a fit for the Lakers, or not as the contract, to take all that out of it. Just as an offensive player, I think the pendulum has swung too far in the negative when the conversation about LaVine.
Well, I'll say this about LaVine, and actually, I'm glad that you brought this up. With this new CBA,
Mm-hmm.
teams are a lot more vocally against these long-term supermax contracts and getting them on their books. And I think
Teams are
that's a
terrified.
big,
Teams, if you have two teams around the league, are terrified of adding a third.
yeah. Well, and the problem with even having one is it's going to limit what you're going to be able to do with having a second, and like you're talking about adding a third. It's if you're going to have a player at that type of money. So for a long time in the NBA, when a player was eligible for a max contract, they just got the max contract, right?
Yes.
Like Kobe famously would walk into a room. Mitch would say, "Hey, this is the number that we can offer you." Kobe would say, "Cool, I'll sign the deal and I'll leave." And that isn't the case anymore. We just saw Kawhi Leonard signing a contract that is below the max that he could have gotten. You're seeing,
It's also fewer years than he could have gotten.
yeah, you're seeing like you're talking about, Aaron. I know the fan perception is one thing, but the league wide perception on LaVine is another subject entirely, and it has everything to do with that contract and the number that he is at for as long he is at that number. Like these like giant contracts. Bradley Beal was traded for pennies on the dollar this last offseason because of the contract he's on. Damian Lillard, I think got Portland a pretty good return, but teams are a lot more nervous about those kinds of contracts here moving forward. And again, for a long time, teams essentially would, if a player was max eligible, you sign that player to the max contract without almost any negotiation, and you figure out whatever else you need to figure out on the peripheries afterward. Now, though, you're having a lot more negotiation. You're having a lot more conversation between the player and the team to actually arrive at a number that makes more sense for both parties. And I think that's why LaVine isn't going to get moved this year, is because that contract is such a potential albatross. And I think he's closer to worth it than, say, like Russ was when the Lakers traded for him. But this is a league wide thing that I think is really throwing the market out of whack here. Is that like legitimate terror around the NBA in overspending with this new CBA, because those luxury taxes are extremely the punishments on those things are extreme, and it limits what you can do from a basketball standpoint.
Yes.
That is a unique to the NBA in their CBA. For a long time, if you wanted to do a certain thing, you wanted to spend a whole bunch of money or whatever, you would pay your luxury taxes and it would suck, but it wouldn't affect what you could do from a basketball standpoint. Now, though, with this CBA, it affects what you can do from a basketball standpoint. And you combine those two things, and teams are legitimately terrified here moving forward of overstretching themselves for a player who doesn't win you championships.
Yes, and excuse me, and then the problem becomes you have fewer avenues because of those restrictions on movement. If you're in the second apron, you have fewer pathways to get off of that money if you are trying to. Like if you put your big three together, or like for let's say Phoenix, they traded for Bradley Beal, and like obviously like we don't give a shit about the second apron, but when that comes into effect next year, if Phoenix is kind of, what are they, ninth, I think, or 9th or 10th in the West, 9th, I think. If it doesn't work, they go into next season and they can't get off of any of those guys. I mean, well, you can trade KD and you can trade Book, of course, but like it would be now if you say, okay, this isn't working, we have to do something else. You can't really get off of Brad Beal's contract because any other team that is also in the second apron, they are not able to aggregate salaries to send you. You can't send 11 million, 13 million, and 16 million and go get a $40 million guy back. So it's going to be harder to get off of these guys and change paths if you're trying to, if it doesn't work. So as it relates to LaVine's trade value, this has nothing to do with the Lakers specifically. As it relates to his trade value, the question around the league is like, he is a star and a huge name. So normally you see, multiple first round picks and good young talent and, one established guy to get something. Like, look at what the Lakers traded for Anthony Davis, that kind of thing. That is not going to be the case here because of all the things that we've mentioned, the contract, his injury history, how good is he actually, all of those things.
Impactful.
The question is
word than good. I think he's good. It's impactful is the
word.
Yeah. There's a real question about.
So the thought around the league is like, are they not going to get good offers for him? The question is if they're going to have to attach something to trade.
Yes. Him. Yeah. I was just having this back and forth yesterday with an exec, and it was like, I was like, are we sure they aren't going to have to attach a pick to him to move him? Because
so it may not attach something. It may not have to be a pick, but attach another player that a team actually wants and has value to them. So it may have to be that you have to expand the deal to a bigger thing, and you can't just trade LaVine for whatever. That you're going to have to be the one to attach a little sweetener. Whether that's a draft pick or a bald-headed white guy on your roster, so be it.
I legitimately, I was going back and forth because initially when we started the conversation, the person I was talking to was like, that's fucking ridiculous. What are you even talking about? LaVine is a very good player. And I was like, yeah, sure. What's his market right now? And he was like, come on. They would rather eat this year of his contract than attach something to him to move him. I was like, sure,
he might be, whoever you're talking to might be right about that, but
but I said that's besides the point. That's kind of my entire point. Is the fact that they might have to. Yeah. And it was a fun little quick conversation back and forth that we arrived at at the end of the thing. He was like, holy shit, you might actually be right. And we'll see what that looks like. You never know, which team, if the Warriors get desperate enough, right, with Chris Paul's injury and Clay forgetting how to play basketball and Andrew Wiggins somehow doing it even more,
We've
do the
already skipped to the
Warriors
part where we make fun of the Warriors. Is that's what we're?
No.
We're just skipping.
We'll get there. We'll get there eventually. I
Oh, good.
also
This is just a
have a
preview, a
story from
teaser.
this morning that I need to say on the show when we are at the end of the show is the hour back and forth this morning about scheduling today. Because I thought that was a perfect encapsulation of your and my divergent life choices.
Yeah.
So you guys have
I'm
that
fairly
to look
honest
forward
about
to
my
as well.
life on this show, on all things I appear on. You and I have chosen different paths, brother.
All right, so I'm getting a lot of questions also in the chat. So yesterday on the lowdown, I reported that or at least relayed that the name that keeps coming up is Austin Reaves in terms of assets, right? If the Lakers are not particularly willing to move their 2029 first rounder, or 30, I guess they could technically move 2030 instead. But if they aren't willing to move that pick,
wait. So I would call it, if the Lakers trade a draft pick, before this trade deadline, it will be the 29 one. The Lakers are not trading the 30 pick. Two reasons. One, that's farther away, and that's 147-year-old LeBron instead of just 100-year-old LeBron, and it's 78-year-old Anthony Davis. There's a very, very good chance that both of them are retired or not on the team. So the farther you get out, the less likely it is that you want to trade that. That's the first reason. The second reason is, if you trade 30, then you can't trade 31. Yeah. So there's no reason to encumber yourself unnecessarily.
That's a good point. So anyway, essentially, if the Lakers, as we talked about earlier in the show, aren't as interested in moving that 29 pick, then their next best asset, and maybe even better asset than the 29 pick, depending on what a team prioritizes, is Austin Reaves, right? He's sitting on a great contract. He's a good youngish player. We've seen him perform in the playoffs. He is the name that, like, essentially every negotiation starts with, okay, you want this guy? Cool. We want Austin. And that's where a negotiation can start. And the Lakers' response so far, I'm told, every time Austin comes up, because the names that we're talking about, right? Zach LaVine, DeJounte Murray, even Jeremy Grant, is like, we'd rather keep Austin than make a move for any of those guys right now. And, I did some asking around the Lakers, and I did some asking around Austin's camp, and the consensus that I arrived at is that nobody is anticipating in any way, shape, or form Austin getting moved. Now, I want to be clear, that doesn't mean that the Lakers consider him off of the table. There is nobody off of the table outright on the Lakers who isn't named LeBron James or Anthony Davis.
Okay. I was going to say, it took you a little bit to get to the couple names. I was going to say.
Yeah. Like the only players that the Lakers would not even listen to or have a conversation about are LeBron James and Anthony Davis for good reason. Like if you're trading LeBron, you got to get back man, I love LeBron trade. I saw Bill Simmons throwing out potential LeBron trades the other day.
Yeah,
and it was and I was like, why would the Lakers even entertain this? It was like Nikola Jovic. What?
Oh yeah, he threw out a Heat. Yeah, he had a Heat fake trade. Yeah.
But anyway, so I want to be clear. I don't think
he might be worse than you at the trade machine. This is more outlandish trade machine stuff. But this is my political platform here. Now that we're in 2024, is that I think there should be drug testing and a breathalyzer connected somehow to the trade machine. You should have to pass some sort of screening before you're allowed to get into the trade machine.
It would you should they should make the results public. So when you make that trade and you blow into the breathalyzer, it says the breathalyzer was at this ABV. when that trade was made or published. this is where that person was at. But yeah, I want to be clear. I don't think Austin is off of the table in definitive terms, but it would take a player
I
better
mean, how
than
many people
DeJounte
around the
Murray.
NBA are like actually untouchable?
I know, that's what I'm
Right.
saying. Like,
Yeah.
you know, the it would take a better player on a better deal than Zach LaVine. It would take, I think, a better player even than DeJounte Murray. It would take, I think, even a better player on a better deal than Jeremy Grant. He just signed a big contract this last offseason as
He
well.
did.
So from what I
right,
have heard,
right when Dame was like publicly asking out, and the Blazers, I was looking back like the Blazers should have been like, wait, is the ink? Did he sign every copy? Do we have anything we can do here? It was literally like 5 hours or something like that, and then Dame's like, well,
it'd be funny. It'd be
I'm out.
funny if like if on the contract, he's like signing it here, and then all of a sudden you see the ink just run off of the page, and it's when they yanked while the pen was still on the paper, they yanked the contract
They
away from him.
gave him a pen with disappearing ink. No. I don't. We have nothing. NBA contracts are thick stacks of paper.
Yeah,
and you have to
they're
sign.
heavier sometimes than the tables that they get signed on.
Yeah, I think you have to do 3 copies. I think you have to sign 3 copies. I've seen it once. I've been in person for someone signing an NBA contract once, and it's like,
it always blows my mind that LeBron signs left-handed and plays right-handed. That is
right.
crazy to me.
That's right.
It's like I golf right-handed and I am left-handed, but that was because I broke my left wrist when I was in like 7th grade, and I had no choice but to essentially become right-handed for a year. And I was early enough in my life that I could become pretty ambidextrous. The fact that LeBron at this like right now still does that like that way is just, it's insane to me. So all right, I see that, like, all right, Tony PR. So are we looking at a marginal move or no move? I think it's more likely that it's quote unquote marginal than it would be an earth-shattering move, because you only have, even if the Lakers were interested in or more interested in moving that 2029 pick, you don't shatter the world with a first round pick. Like,
Correct.
you don't like the kinds of trades in today's NBA that get you whatever kind of player with only, like, the Lakers moved a first round pick last year to bring back a Jared Vanderbilt who eventually became unplayable in the playoffs, D'Angelo Russell, who we've seen the kind of player that D'Angelo Russell is, right? Good, but can be played off of the court in the playoffs. It moved Russell Westbrook's contract, which was a big deal, but Russell Westbrook's contract was an expiring $47 million. So it's not like that was some albatross that nobody could possibly comprehend dealing with in the way that like Zach LaVine's contract is. And so like, I think, if I had to choose one way or the other on answering that question, is it marginal or no move? Well, it'll be marginal because I don't think they aren't going to make a trade. I'd be pretty shocked if this trade season came and went and the Lakers didn't do anything at all. But I also would be pretty shocked if they moved that 2029 pick, let alone moved Austin Reaves. So like what you're looking at is D'Angelo Russell and a few second rounders, or Rui Hachimura and a few second rounders, or combining those guys for a bigger contract than a few second rounders, or maybe a pick swap or something like that.
Well,
But what if you consider that marginal? Then I think I guess that's where we stand right now.
So, I mean, yes. So, it almost by like, if the Lakers are to do anything, and I will say even if you include the 29 pick, that whether the Lakers, how excited the Lakers and willing the Lakers are to move that, you said your piece on.
I think I have that pretty good. Like I'm as
not
confident
disagreeing with you.
in
Let's say that
I'm
I am
as
not going to
confident
disagree
in
with you.
reporting that as I was, say, like not
Something
the
you were
starting
very
lineup, because I
confident in.
had that for sure, but like the locker room stuff. Like, so if you want to compare like my reporting or whatever and how confident I am in this, how confident I was in reporting what was going on in the locker room compared to now, That's how confident I am in what I know about what the Lakers' intentions are.
So something to keep in mind here,
right now,
if you say,
I always have to throw that disclaimer.
Yes,
right
yeah,
now,
of course, yes. Something to keep in mind for fans out there and everybody, on the trade machine, and people with Lakers fans have very high expectations, and understandably so. Something to keep in mind is there are 29 other teams in the NBA, and they are all trying to get better also. Everybody has a different war chest of talent and contracts and picks and all this kind of thing. Even if the Lakers are to put their best assets forward, how many other teams can beat the Lakers offer for whoever it might be?
Yeah.
I mean, you haven't even mentioned the best player. I can't do it, but you haven't even mentioned the best player that is rumored to be available, because not specifically to Lakers, just around the NBA. You haven't even mentioned that person.
Mitchell?
Because what's that?
Mitchell? Donovan Mitchell?
No, but that's a fine answer too. Yeah, that's fine. Anybody of that caliber or around that caliber who may be possibly available, the Lakers best offer is going to get beat by 10, 15 other
Yeah.
teams. So
Right.
yeah, I mean, like, it kind of by definition is going to be a marginal trade, because the Lakers only have enough to acquire a person who many fans would consider a marginal upgrade.
This is a good question from LeBron Stan. It's a fitting name. But if the Lakers don't move the pick, don't we risk upsetting LeBron and AD? Yeah, you risk it. But like this isn't to me like it was a couple of years ago, where the Lakers had more at their disposal to be able to move and chose not to. Remember that All-Star break where LeBron was like complimenting Sam Presti and
I do.
complimenting the
Yeah.
Rams
Yeah.
GM and all
Fuck
that
them
stuff,
kids.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I think
No, fuck them
was,
picks. Sorry. Yeah. Fuck them picks.
Although, like, some mornings I feel the way that you
But that's the Michael Jordan one, right? The
Yeah.
meme, the Michael Jordan. Yeah. Fuck them kids. Yeah.
So like that to me was a situation where I thought that LeBron and LeBron more than AD, I'll just say this, doesn't get upset organizationally speaking. He's pretty much just like, I'm going to show up, I'm going to hoop. And that's pretty much how this is going to go. So like, even when all the Darvin Ham stuff was going on, like, it was like you had some people who felt a certain way in that locker room about Darvin Ham. There was some people who felt a lot more emotionally about Darvin Ham. There were some people who really liked the job that Darvin Ham is doing, right? Like Torian Prince has said that he has never felt more wanted in an organization, because it's literally true. But like AD throughout all of that was just like, wait, what? What's going on? He's a lot more happy-go-lucky, but
he is. AD is one of the most competitive people I have ever met.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
But yeah, he does kind of have a way of coming across as more mild-mannered, away from like wanting to rip everybody's throat out in between the lines.
Yeah. I don't think he messes around nearly as much, especially after the way the Russ thing went. I don't think he messes around anywhere near as much with like personnel stuff. And I don't think he at all messes around with like wanting the coach fired or anything like that. That to me is not something that AD seems to dabble much with. But anyway, like, this is coming into the season, Aaron, and the audience. You guys were like annoyed with how often I was saying, hey, if this roster isn't what the Lakers believe it to be, or what you guys think it to be, or what we hope it to be, the Lakers aren't going to have very many assets or avenues that they'll be able to take to improve it. They're hard capped. Like the other day, I said that if the Lakers weren't hard capped, I would like the idea of waiving Hayes and bringing in Bismack Biyombo. And the reason you can't do that is you literally can. Like CBA wise, it's a thing that the Lakers can literally do. But the more that you do that, the more that you edge up against that hard cap number, the more limited that you're going to be when it comes time at the trade deadline. That would be the kind of thing that you do after the trade deadline, when you know exactly what you have to work with or what you need to work with moving forward for the rest of the season. So when I said, hey, it would be nice to not hard cap yourself with one of these players, whether it's Taurean Prince or, it was Taurean Prince was who they hard capped themselves for. And whether it's keeping some extra money here to not care about the luxury tax, whether it was whatever it was that I kept on saying, the reason I said all of that stuff is if you arrived where the Lakers currently are right now, where I think it's pretty clear the Lakers could use some upgrades and some shots in the arm with this roster, but they don't have as many avenues because of the way that they did their business over the offseason. It's why, by the way, I was also kind of surprised on draft night that the Lakers didn't move. They could have moved the 29 pick, and they could have moved the pick that they used that night on draft night to combine those two picks to bring in a player with those assets. They chose not to do that. They drafted Jalen Hood-Schifino, and that surprised me. Not only did they not use those picks, but they also used them on a prospect who's a couple years away from being a couple years away. So like where you arrive right now, if LeBron does walk into Pelinka's office and says, why aren't we doing anything? Pelinka can kind of sort of say, there isn't much that we can do. We have one first rounder that we're working with. You have some pick swaps potentially way down the road, but that really limits what you're going to be able to do this offseason. At some point, that bill comes due. Just ask Saints fans, right? Like they're looking at their team right now and they're like, yeah, this is not a great team. And we're stuck with this team for the foreseeable future because we spent a lot of money and assets to keep this not great team. And this is kind of where the Lakers find themselves too.
This really also goes back to the question about do you like risk alienating LeBron and AD by not doing something? There's like I mentioned it earlier in the show, like at some point there's a reality too, which is you have to look at where the Lakers are in the NBA landscape this season and say there isn't anything we can do that's going to get us where we want to go. So doing something just to do something doesn't make any sense, which is why the next 4 weeks of games are so important, because the Lakers are in a place right now where, winning 7 of 10 means something, like gives you an idea of what you might want to do going into the deadline, and losing 7 of 10 makes you say, like, is this salvageable at all? So the next few weeks here are very crucial in information gathering as it leads to the deadline and what path to take.
Yep. All right. Let's really quickly hit on the Darvin Ham stuff. And so essentially, to answer the question that everybody keeps asking, how close did he get to being fired? I'm here to say not close at all. It was never. There was at the very top of the organization. Jeannie didn't want to fire him, right? We've seen Sam Amick report that she was texting him throughout all of that stuff to say how much she respects the job that he is doing and admires him, the human being. Rob Pelinka didn't want to fire him, in part because that would have been, he fired a championship caliber head coach to hire a rookie coach. And if that doesn't work out very well, that doesn't look great on his docket and his kind of job tally or whatever. There are people lower in the organization who have some questions in the basketball operations about the job that he is doing, but they don't make the final decision. So in terms of the people who would have made the final decision on Darvin Ham, it never came close. Had the Lakers had they lost that Clippers game or whatever, it's not like after that Clippers game, the Lakers Rob Pelinka would have walked into Darvin Ham's office and fired him there. That's not how that was ever going to play out. The thing I did say is that if the Lakers got blown out and it became evident that the players were like completely tuned out to him, then that like people in the organization were certainly kind of bracing themselves for what comes next. But I don't think there was ever any circumstance that the Lakers would have lost that one game and made a decision based off of that one game, one way or the other on Darvin Ham. Because essentially, if you do that, and we saw this with Frank Vogel last year or 2 years ago, where there was the Utah Jazz game that the Lakers won. And then right afterward, you got the report after that, like had he lost that one, they were getting ready to fire him, which means they had essentially made their decisions on Frank Vogel and eventually arrived at it for where they fired him like the second the season ended. So I don't think it ever got that close with Darvin Ham, but I also don't think that this stuff is necessarily behind him either, because there are some people in that locker room whose trust he needs to earn back. There are some people in basketball ops who would like to see him do things differently. I will, though, say on even that front that his handling of all of this, to where apparently, and again, this is according to Sam Amick, he opened up the lines of communication and had a kind of hash it out film room session where he allowed players to voice their opinion on the job that he is doing. And he, gave feedback on that feedback back to those players and all of that stuff. And they had, apparently, according to those reports, a good, productive conversation. That's exactly what I'd been hoping for, is hearing about exactly that. So I think that allows you to make some progress, but I do think we're nowhere. Just as we were nowhere near him getting fired, I don't think we're anywhere near this stuff being completely behind him either, because there's a lot of progress that needs to be made in that locker room.
Yep.
Cool. I will say this, though. You've been in organizations and you've watched, right? Like Steve Kerr literally says after, and this, perfect segue. Look at me being good at my job.
Professional broadcaster.
But Steve Kerr says after last night's game that they lost, what is it? The confidence and belief. And there was one more that I forget, but he like, in a way, is admitting they've kind of tuned him out too. And you've been in enough organizations to where that, I don't know how close in an organization you have been to a coach feeling that way or the organization feeling that way about that head coach or whatever. But, without getting into specifics, obviously, with this situation, what does that feel like? Like, is that just something that just sits, is it like a pink elephant in every room?
No. Yes. Yes. It also depends how much of the team is, like the team is not a monolith, right? It's made up of individual humans, and people have different relationships with different people. They vibe with people better than others. So it depends. You're generally not. There's always on every team in every season, there's always at least one or two guys that kind of look sideways at the coach, no matter who it is. Look sideways at the coach, like, man, fuck this dude, like, whatever. They don't like their rotation minutes, or they don't like how they're being used, or whatever. But when it gets to like half of the guys or 2/3 of the guys, like, it's more systemic than that. It's, or all of the guys. You're not going to get all the guys, but like when it becomes half the team or 2/3 of the team, and then depending on who it is,
that was what was notable about the reports, right? It was like 6 sources say that the locker room feels a certain way about Darvin Ham.
So yeah, I mean, to answer your question, yes. When it becomes to a bunch of guys on the bench, then yeah, it's kind of just like a fog over the whole thing. It's just kind of like a weight that just sits there, and everybody knows it, but nobody's going to say anything about it. You're not going to. But when, then this is not, I'm not suggesting that this has happened with the Lakers, but when a coach gets tuned out, it's very, very difficult to get that back. Not Lakers specific at all, but it is very difficult to, if guys are out on a coach or an organization or a GM, or like once it gets to that level, right? What is it? Isn't there like some song like when a woman's fed up, right? like when you get to the point where then like it's very, very difficult to unring that bell.
Yeah, and that's been the thing that I've been trying to nail down is like, did this situation, and I don't want to put you in a tough spot here, but like, did the Lakers situation cross that threshold? Has it?
No, at least I don't think so. I think there are guys that have been frustrated with their role, but it's also like the Lakers are not playing well or haven't. It's been better recently, but at that time we're playing poorly. And so that is like a weight also. And it's like you can feel not this specific situation, but like what is it? The Natural is one of my favorite movies. It's the only sports movie that I like. The Natural, the old Robert Redford
Robert Redford?
baseball movie. They, the team goes on a losing streak, and there's like this montage in the thing where they bring in like some weird like doctor, witch doctor person, and to like losing is a disease, as contagious as whatever polio or something. So like it that kind of like builds on itself. And then if there's guys that are frustrated or frustrated with how they're playing, frustrated with their role, frustrating with rotations, all that kind of thing. Yeah, there are some guys that have been frustrated, but I think a lot of it was just losing. And I do not think that the locker room has tuned him out. I think some guys have had some frustrations, and Darvin's frustrated too because he's searching for combinations. So he is trying to look for stuff that's working better than the stuff has been working. And that does mess with guys' roles and minutes. And, it's hard because you don't know, you want to make fun of the Warriors. It's the same thing with the Warriors. When you don't
Yeah.
have like a 5 you can settle on and you keep searching for something that works, it is going to mess with guys' roles. And these are creatures of habit. NBA players are creatures of habit and want to know, okay, I come in at this time, I go out at this time, I come back in at this time. And for this 6-minute stretch, I'm gonna primarily be doing this, so, and the Lakers haven't settled on that yet.
Yeah. That to me is my biggest frustration with Ham and this coaching staff is that you are now reaching the halfway point here pretty soon, and I have no idea if they have any idea who their best 5-man lineup is that they can go
Yeah, but to
to.
be fair, like I don't know, like, do you know who their best 5 man unit? Like, this is like, okay, fine, we're in charge now. Who? Like, I
Well,
have some sympathy for Darvin for this because I don't know who. Like, I don't have a group. I have things that I would suggest, but I don't think it is definitive. You can say it should be these guys.
no, but like the issue is like the issue with turning that on us there is that I haven't been in charge of
Sure.
finding those combinations out, right? So like I thought that they gave up on the Austin D'Lo combination a little too quickly. It's a fine regular season
So I
combination,
agree with
and
that. And the other part of it is I understand why it was given up on. I agree it was a little early. My point though is I would have made the other decision. I would have
yeah, I would have put them.
but then there's personalities, right? Like
Yeah,
Austin's gonna handle and has handled going to the bench better than D'Lo has and would.
yeah. Well, D'Lo hasn't answered questions for two straight games now, so we kind of know how he feels about that move. The last thing before we get you out of here, and this is just me talking to you guys. Here's where this is tough. Okay, the more reporting that I do, the more that my analysis or my reporting sounds like my analysis. So when you guys are sitting there frustrated at the fact that the Lakers might make what you deem a marginal move or what we deem a more marginal move, I'm here saying I'm also frustrated that they put themselves in this predicament in the first place, given what I said dating back to last summer, right? Those are two very separate things. Is the things that I'm relaying to you, the information I'm relaying to you about their intentions right now. And again, I always have to throw that disclaimer right
Yeah.
now, and what I would prefer that they do, right? Um, and look, maybe we can have one of these conversations where I kind of step away, take off my reporter hat, and I just give the analysis or whatever. This is me learning on the job. I have not done reporting over the course of my career, and so I'm learning to find that balance as well. So as I find that balance a little bit better, then we'll all grow together. This has been fun. Aaron, you have to hustle out and go get your hair cut, get your hair did. Thank you everybody for tuning in. Another big show here for us, despite it being a YouTube exclusive. That's awesome. Make sure you guys are hitting that subscribe button. Make sure you guys are hitting like and commenting and all of that stuff. Subscribe everywhere that you find your podcast. If you missed one of these live broadcasts, tonight I will be on All Access Lakers with the guys there to watch tonight's game. So tune into that. Playback.tv/All Access Lakers is where you can find that. And then immediately after the game, I will be here in the lounge to break it down with you, either with somebody or with you right now. So until the next time you guys hear from me, I'm Anthony Irwin. That was Aaron Larsoul. This has been The Lounge. Make somebody else's day. No, have a great rest of your day. Make somebody else's, and I will talk to you tonight when the Lakers take on the Phoenix Suns.